Have you ever wondered how a law meant to improve society could inadvertently give rise to an era of notorious gangsters? As puzzling as it may seem, that's exactly what happened during the Prohibition era in the United States. Just after the end of the First World War, the war to end all wars, America found itself embroiled in a new type of conflict, one that raged on its own streets. The Volstead Act of 1919 had turned the nation dry, prohibiting the production, sale, and transport of alcoholic beverages. This legislation, intended to curb the societal ills associated with alcohol, instead sparked an unexpected and dramatic rise in organized crime. As the nation went dry in 1920, a tide of professional criminals began to swell. These weren't your run-of-the-mill lawbreakers, but sophisticated outfits that operated like well-oiled machines. In Chicago alone, an estimated 1,300 gangs had mushroomed by the mid-1920s, spreading their influence like a deadly virus. These gangs weren't just lurking in the shadows. They were bold, brazen, and above all, immensely wealthy. Thanks to the immense profits from bootlegging, they armed themselves with the latest weaponry, including the iconic Tommy guns. They operated with impunity, their wealth allowing them to buy off politicians and police officers alike. Among these gangs, two stood out for their power and ruthlessness, the outfits led by Al Scarface Capone and George Bugs Moran. Their rivalry would turn the streets of Chicago into a war zone, as they battled for control of the city's lucrative illegal alcohol trade. So, how did a law meant to improve society end up fueling an era of unprecedented organized crime? The Prohibition era is a testament to the law of unintended consequences, where a well-intentioned legislation instead gave birth to a generation of notorious gangsters. From the end of the First World War to the end of Prohibition, this was an era defined by its own set of rules, where the line between law enforcement and law-breaking became blurred. It was a time when the streets of America echoed with the sound of Tommy guns, and the faces of Scarface, Capone, and Bugs Moran became infamous symbols of a lawless epoch. In summary, the Prohibition era saw the rise of professional criminals who profited immensely from bootlegging, leading to the proliferation of gangs. The wealth these gangs amassed enabled them to arm themselves with sophisticated weaponry and buy off politicians and police officers. The rivalry between Al Scarface Capone and George Bugs Moran turned the streets of Chicago into a war zone, marking an era of unprecedented organized crime. This period, stretching from the end of the First World War to the end of Prohibition, stands as a stark reminder of the law of unintended consequences.